You know that smartphone in your pocket? It feels like it's a permanent part of your life, right? Well, what if it's not? An article from Android Authority predicts that by 2026, the entire industry is headed for a cliff, and it's about to take some of the biggest names down with it.
So that brings us to the core question the article poses, and it's a big one. Which brand is going to be the next to disappear? And as you're about to see, the list of who might be on the chopping block is probably longer and a lot more shocking than you'd think.
I mean, this isn't just some wild guess. The article actually polled its readers, and whoa, the results are pretty telling. A staggering 47%, nearly half, think OnePlus is done for. And get this, even Google's own Pixel phone isn't seen as totally safe. So what's really going on here?
Okay, to really get why we're at this tipping point, you've got to look at the dominoes that have already started to fall.
I mean, the year kicked off with a real shocker. Asus, a brand you probably know, just completely exited the smartphone business. Gone. And now all eyes are on these once mighty competitors like OnePlus, with rumors about its future just constantly swirling.
But look, these recent events, they're really just the latest tremor. The truth is, the foundations of this industry have been cracking for years, ever since that, golden age of competition started to fade away.
Do you remember the mid-2000s? It was this amazing time for phone innovation, with tons of brands fighting it out. But slowly, the giants started to stumble. First, you had an innovator like HTC just fade away. Then in 2021, a total bombshell. LG, a top-tier rival to Samsung, completely left the market. And that sent a shockwave through the entire industry.
So you see the pattern here, right? It's pretty clear. Even being a huge household name like LG or HTC, that wasn't enough to guarantee survival. The market was already shrinking down to just a few mega brands long before this current crisis even hit.
So that consolidation kinda set the stage. But now there's a whole new layer of challenges that's created, well, a perfect storm. And it's pushing the brands that are left to their absolute limit.
Okay, so manufacturers are getting squeezed from literally every direction. You've got chaotic global economies and tariff issues making business totally unpredictable. But the real killer? The AI boom. All this massive investment in artificial intelligence is making the price of essential parts, like memory and storage, just skyrocket, and that's creating huge shortages for phone makers.
So what's the result of all this? Well, we're heading into what the article calls an age of smartphone austerity. And you should get ready for a pretty weird new reality where your next phone, it might actually do less, but cost you more.
So in an environment like this, how can a smaller brand even fight back? Well, the article looks at the 3 classic ways to succeed, and pretty much argues that every single one is now a dead end.
Okay, so traditionally, a smaller brand has 3 main moves it can make. You can offer a better price, a cooler design, or some kind of breakthrough tech. Simple, right? Well, according to the article, in 2026, all 3 of those paths are basically blocked.
All right, first up, competing on price. Forget about it. It's just not an option anymore. With those component costs we were talking about just skyrocketing, even the so-called budget phones are getting expensive. The whole idea of a flagship killer that built brands like OnePlus, that's gone.
Okay, what about just innovating with cool new tech? Well, this comparison kind of shows you how impossible that is. A new player just cannot compete with the resources of a giant like Samsung. I mean, Samsung has a practically infinite R&D budget. They can even design and build their own cutting-edge parts, like their displays. It's a completely unwinnable arms race.
So that just leaves design. But let's be honest, the article argues this path is now just full of gimmicks. Things like bringing back a physical keyboard. Yeah, they might grab a headline for a day, but they don't build a real, sustainable business.
So if every path to success is a dead end, what does this winner-take-all future actually mean for you?
The article really lands on this incredibly powerful conclusion. The cost of just staying in the game, we're talking R&D, marketing, navigating the supply chain, it's now so insanely high that only the #1 market leader is actually safe. For everybody else, it's just becoming too expensive to even play.
And what that leaves us with is a pretty stark reality, where only one dominant player, Samsung, is described as being, quote, safe for as long as it wants to be. I mean, that completely changes the game for choice and competition in the whole Android market.
And that, of course, brings us to the final critical question. With fewer and fewer brands fighting for your dollar and one giant left standing, what happens to innovation? What happens to prices? When all the competition fades away, we have to ask, does the customer always lose?